Good evening, good evening, good evening. What's up, Julius?
What's going on, Joe?
All is well, all is well. We have another edition of Incarceration to Incorporation, another Friday night where we can just sit down and talk about what's going on this platform. I tell you, our co-host, Marie, she should be joining us after a while. AB, we want to always give a shout out to him and the things that he got going on. But tonight we wanted to just set aside and recap to talk about some of the things that we have been talking about over the course of the last few months. It is one thing to bring it out and to put it on the platform, but we can't forget about them. And so we're going to talk about the different stories that we spoke of in the past. We're going to talk about some new events that's taking place right now that we need to give attention to. But before I go any further, I always want to tell you that ink to ink, incarceration to incorporation, idea that was brought about by our partner, AB, a platform that was given to us by our main man, Julius Hall. And as always, we want to change the narrative. There are many, many women who are coming home from incarceration. They say that we are automatically returning, but that is not the truth. Many of us are successful, whether it's occupation, employment, organization, relationships. There are countless men and women who are doing well. We started out wrong, but look at us now. We're finishing strong. So what you got to say, Julius? I know it's something on your heart right now.
Well, you know me. We are here to motivate and inspire. Mm-hmm. We're here to make sure that everybody knows that they still have a chance if they're still breathing. That's what this is all about. We're here to make sure that we, Marie, educate.
We empower, encourage, and educate.
There you go. Empower, encourage, and educate. And while we're doing that, we're going to inspire you to be empowered. So
that's very good.
So we this is what we do here every Friday at 6 p.m. We're trying to connect the dots. That's what Julius loves to say about connecting the dots, and that's what we believe in. We believe that we can be more of a help to the returning citizens if we can connect the dots so they can get things that we might can't provide, somebody else or some other organization might can provide. So that's what we're here for. It's all about us teaming up because teamwork makes the dream work. Marie?
I like that. I like what you said, Mr. Hall. And I'm gonna do your saying. A debt paid is no longer a debt. So
That's
stop
right.
holding me to what I have done. Because I'm quite sure if we look in your lineage clause, you have did things too. The only difference between me and you, I got caught and you did. So how y'all doing this evening?
Awesome. What Julius and I was talking about, Marie, we're going to just go
Mhm.
back a little bit into history and we're going to recap some of the stories that we've talked about over the past couple of months. But then also, we're going to turn the corner and we're going to talk about some things that's going on right now. I heard you say one moment, sometime that you say, can I say something or can I say this? Well, this is your opportunity to say there's something that's going on right now in our community that we need to talk about. And then one other thing that's dear to my heart is there are men and women who are incarcerated and they're living in hell, if you will. They are going through some deep or inhumane situations and circumstances. And I just want to bring to light some of the things that are going on. Why? So that we can educate, enlighten our community. Because a lot of people in our community don't know what's going on behind those closed doors or behind those bars. And ironically enough, at least 75% of our community has some loved ones that's behind those bars. But before we get there, I don't want to jump the gun. Let's start. Julius, I sent you a few of them. Some of the things that we talked about. Number one, I will call it, and then I will get both of you to just tell us a little bit about what you remember about that topic and the people who we brought on during that time. Well, the topic that we talked about once before was living and loving behind the bars. I know you remember that one, Marie. Living
Yes.
and loving behind the bars. Tell us a little bit about what took place during that time.
You want me to go, Mr. Hall?
You could go
You.
ladies first.
Okay, what living and loving behind the walls. I remember that because we were talking about people who are in relationships with people that are incarcerated, or it was the lady who was on there on the show with us. She was married to a gentleman. I think that he have a life sentence, if I'm not mistaken, Miko.
Correct,
And
correct.
she is sticking by her husband and she is there for the long haul, which I think is very, very important when you are incarcerated to have someone that you know that loves you and who is really holding you down mentally, emotionally, and all of that, because a person need that when they are behind bars. So yeah, I had liked that show. I like the way she said that she is going to stick with her husband regardless of what come and who come. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that was a good show.
Yeah, and I remember that as well because what stood out most to me is when Kelly, that was her name, it was Kelly. Kelly was saying
Mm,
that to her, commitment meant everything. And
yes.
when she made that commitment, even though her husband told her, "Look, you know, I made this decision. I messed up." She's not staying because she was coerced. She's staying because she was committed, and that resonated with a lot of our listeners. Commitment
Hmm.
means something to her. But we also had another guest. I believe we had Keita.
Shakita,
Exactly.
Shakita.
Do you remember what
And
Shakita was
Shakita
talking about?
speak, yeah, Shakita spoke about it. She didn't know if she could, if she knew that she knew that she could probably be there mentally for a mental support, but she didn't think that she could be there in the long haul like that. So she commended Kelly for being committed to her husband, and actually Keita was saying about even her being faithful to her husband, you know, because Kelly said that there was no other man for her but her husband. So I think that's very important when you can be faithful to a man or a woman that is incarcerated for a long, extensive period of time. That says a lot about Kelly and the
Exactly.
love that she has for her husband. So yeah.
It,
And
it, it, it
go
really
ahead, Julius.
does. And that's what's so good about that show. is what we were showing is that, um, and what we were trying to relay to any spouse that has a person locked up is that, that person is going through it,
Mm-hmm.
especially if that person was out there trying to make a living, even though it was illegal,
Mm-hmm.
to support you, then you
Mm-hmm.
should support that person with everything
Right.
that you have. And
That's
those
right.
women, those women showed that they were sticking by their man. Because
That's right.
when you're locked up, you need somebody to tell you that they love you, that
That
they're
exactly.
behind you, that they got your back, that
That's right.
they're there for you, and will try to help you in any way that they can. That means the world to a person. That gives you that drive to say, I'm going to make it
Yes.
out of here. I'm going to get back and I'm going to do right and try to make this person proud of me because I might have messed up, but I
Right.
can finish strong if I just get back there and live my life right. And so that's the
Right.
motivation behind all of it. That was a great episode of loving, living and loving behind bars. That was a great episode.
And
Mm-hmm.
before we move to the next one, I just wanted to just a brief thought process of that whole storyline was women, specifically women. When you are in a relationship with someone that is behind the walls, count that cost. Count that cost. And because there are some good men there, but also vice versa, men, count that cost. And if you can commit to it, by all means, there have been many success stories of relationships that have lasted throughout the incarceration. So it is doable. Just make sure that you have definitely thought it through. Another show that we had brought up before was changing the narrative, starting out wrong but finishing
Mm-hmm.
strong. And what do you remember about? And actually, we had a part one and a part two
Right.
to those stories. We had guests that came on and they told us about how they started out wrong, but then how they finished strong and how that lifestyle was changing the narrative. Can you remember some of the things that we talked about in relation to those ideas to that title? Starting out wrong, but finishing strong, changing the narrative. Julius, you go.
Well, and that's most of what this whole platform and this whole program is about. Because we have instances where we started out wrong and we're trying to finish strong, and we have to change the narrative because the narrative right now is once you've done something wrong that you're history. And we want to change that narrative to show people that don't worry about where you've been, only worry about where you're going, only worry about how far you can go. Because if you let somebody else frame the narrative for you, then you've lost already. I sat with people that people would think I could not sit with. I had lunch today with people that you would think that I would never have lunch with. So uh, it's not where you've been, it's where you're going. It's what difference you can make in somebody's life. And we change the narrative ourselves by participating, by being involved and engaged, by wanting to help somebody else. And that's what it's all about. Because we don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't. You're here today and gone tomorrow. So while you're here, do that little bit that needs to be done to help somebody else get above that line where they don't know that line of despair, where they don't know where they're going. They don't know what's the next move. But we connect the dots. If we connect those dots, then we can move forward and get things right for somebody else. We could save a life. We could save somebody from going back into prison. And that's what this is
Mm-hmm.
about. This whole thing is about that.
Marie?
That's I had asked Miko a question the other day about forgiveness and about how a person should have a chance, right? And I like what Miko said to me. He said if it was off of his charge, no one would never give him a chance, right? Especially when it first happened. But looking at his lifestyle and the way he lives the life and the way that he speak, and not just speak, because he shows his, even with his words, his action shows. Because people say anything, but he live his life by his life living is his actions. How he speak, he's doing everything that Miko say he's gonna do. He's gonna do it. He's not a negative person. He has drive, all of that. He's very prestigious to me, and I like that about Miko. So when you see him, you would never think, you won't even think nothing about it. You just won't. It's just, so I just think that that's changing the narrative. Come out, take and do things positive. Try your best to do things positive. That even so in your life and living, people won't say, there's no way he or she could have did that, because the way you live your life. The way you live your life, people are going to think the way they want it. But if you're not living like the way you used to, like I used to be a thief, okay? I used to be a thief. Mr. Hall, you can't get me to write a check or to take somebody's credit card now. I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. I remember a young lady, she said, Miss Marie, you think you perfect. I said, now, if this child know the way I feel about me, she wouldn't say that. Miss Marie, you're not. I said, girl, I'm not hardly perfect. I said, but you have to tell people your testimony to let them know where you've been. And that's why I strive so hard where I'm going. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be that person. I want to change the narrative about myself, of not doing what's wrong, not looking to write no check or no credit card. So, it's just doing things different.
I like
You
that.
got to do things. You
Marie,
got to do it.
wipe your lens off, Marie, because it's kind of.
It's not. It's not. Guess what? It's going to be that way because I cracked where the camera is. I dropped the phone and then my finger, and I cracked right there. So it's going to look like that. See, you see me now?
Okay, right there. Leave it right there.
Right there. I'm going to hold it right here.
Julius, yes. I don't know what we're going to do with her, man.
I know we got to take her to the store. That's all. We got to take her to the store. But listen,
I like changing the narrative on that.
I like what she said. And you know how we do it? We do it by our story. Damien Welcome is watching. Shout out to him. And he says, you have been delivered. And also, Thomas Barbie says, commitment is just like what God wants us to do or to be towards him. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And Ellis has joined us as well. But storytelling, I believe that an effective way of changing the narrative is telling the story, telling your story. Because when you tell your story, it combats another story, a false narrative. That false narrative that says that all of us who have been incarcerated are either A, going back, or C, we are no good. But Julius says it, our debt has been paid. It is no longer a debt. And also, when a person sees your lips by your life, that changes the narrative. And that's why we do what we do here on Ain't the Ain't. Because if we can get as many stories as we can out in the airwaves, it will combat that falsity that's being perpetuated up there in our nation's capital. So those of you that are listening, if you got a story to tell, by all means, contact us so that we can get your story out. Another thing that we talked about from reentry to resource. No, excuse me, from returning citizens to resources. What do we mean by that? A person who was incarcerated, hence the word returning citizen, someone who has been incarcerated and now they're home, whether it was 20 days ago or 20 years ago. Returning citizen to resource. That person who is now helping other returning citizens has become a resource. So one of our shows was from returning citizen to resource. We had Dakota on. Dakota was one of the brothers that has gotten out, got his own paint business. We had others. We talked to Yolanda from the Harambe House. We've talked to countless people. We talked to the young lady out of Atlanta. We shared. She shared how she has a home or an apartment for people. So, how can we, Julius Hall, you yourself are from returning citizen to a resource? Tell us about those ideas.
And again, that is what we are supposed to do. If we went in there and we get out and have the opportunities to do something for somebody else because we were fortunate enough to have somebody to do something for us, it is incumbent upon us to do the same, right. to pay it forward. That's what we must do. You must do that because what kind of person are you if somebody help you and you don't see yourself helping somebody else behind?
That's right.
Everybody needs a lift up. A lot of people not going to tell you they do, but everybody needs a lift up. And I tell people all the time, they say when people get sick, they don't want to tell everybody because they don't want their business out in the street. You don't know, you need to tell everybody.
That's right.
Because you don't know who prayers are stronger than yours. Because if your prayers are not reaching God, or that person's own, mine might.
Right.
It might save a life. So if you believe in God, then just give it to everybody. Say, I need your prayers. I need whatever you can do for me. I need you to do in God's name so that He can say, I will spare this person. I will have mercy on this person. Because if you had grace on that person, then that person ain't going nowhere till God tells him it's that person's time. But mercy, if you want that person, God, your prayers might help that person survive until another day. So, right. I tell people that's what it's all about. It's about us being a resource to somebody else. You don't know what your resources are until you ask for it. You don't know what your resources are until you look for it. So those prayers that you got coming out from everybody praying. My mama was a praying woman in her latter years. So she done prayed me up out of there. She done prayed all her kids out there. Ain't none of us been back. So it's all about what resources you can get that can help you to get to the next level so that you can help somebody else.
We went back and talked about new beginnings. We had a young lady on from Atlanta whose name was Shannon Smith, and she had just did 25 years in the prison system, and now she was out, and she was telling us about her new beginnings. Do y'all remember that session we had?
Yeah,
I don't remember Shannon Smith.
Okay.
Was Shannon Smith, was she the black woman on there who was crying on the podcast that night, Miko? And she had the things like she had resources like to help not that one?
No. Shannon was a young lady. She was actually, before she was incarcerated, she was Albany's first rapper, female rapper.
Wow.
You can actually go and Google that. She was Albany's first female rapper, but she did 25 years in prison. And when she got out, she was telling us about the plight of women. Out of prison, there's not a lot of resources for women as there is for men. And she would just tell us, smart young lady, intelligent, very philosophical, idealistic. And she is, right now she's in Atlanta. She was doing a lot of things, but she was trying to use her different educational degrees, but was having a difficult time. And she was just telling us about new beginnings, but she wasn't the only one. We had others, Shanard Lindsay that came on out of Atlanta, and also Ben Huntley that came on out of Atlanta. So we had a lot of men and women to come on and tell us about their new beginnings. Can y'all speak to new beginnings for someone who a returning citizen?
And I remember Shannon. And see, the thing is that what we have to do with this show is to inspire people to don't give up. This
Right.
girl had 2 or 3 degrees that she got while she was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
She did over 25 years in prison. She educated herself, and when you talk to her, you'll think she's some type of psychologist because
Yes.
she talks on that level. And we have to do follow-ups on these people also. It's just that we're so busy. We try to put this show out there so we can help people, but we also have to be able to follow up because we want to make sure that, especially if somebody like Shannon gets in the right organization, so that she can help that young lady that might be in a gang. She can help that young lady who might be about to go to prison for shoplifting, and she could talk to them out of doing those things and being a better person. She's written, I think she wrote a book, or she was writing a book. She was doing, she's an artist. So, you know, it's all kinds of, she was starting a t-shirt company or something, I believe. You know, it's things that we need to be really continually trying to connect these dots, because she's in Atlanta where a lot more resources than there are in Savannah. And we got to use our connections. And I think you did hook up with a couple of people, Julius,
Right.
that she needed, that she got with, but we got to follow up to find out and have these people back on the show. This is just a recap of all the shows over the last 10, 12 weeks. And what we want to do is follow up and make sure and bring those people back so they can tell where they are now and what they're doing. Because it's all about fresh starts. It's all about, if you educated yourself to the point where you can be a resource for somebody, that's what this show and this platform is all about.
And
Exactly.
I like the show that we had with Kia, Jess, and Suzanne, the authors of the book. I really like the how Kia came out of her drug addiction. I like that, people hearing testimonies about how people can get over, how you can get over. Like, you don't have to stay in that situation, even if you are on drugs or a prostitute or in an abusive relationship. When you hear testimonies from the people who be on the show, you know that you can be delivered and spared from these things. So it's just determination. You got to have, Kia had to have determination, and I love what she said. She couldn't do it without God. A lot of things that people try to do, we don't want to say, it was God that helped me. But I'm telling you, even you being another day in prison, it has to be the will of God, because he keeps you in your right mind.
True. As a matter of fact, that was Melody Mason that helped those girls, or those ladies, excuse me, to
Yes.
author that book. And so shouts out to those ladies for that book as well. Also, turning the corner, we talked about youth for a while. We had Dr. Hayden on, who was from Building Bridges High and Middle. We had Tree, Marlon Knight, to come in and talk as well when we begin to talk about the school to prison pipeline. So
Yeah.
y'all, some of those stories with those men to come in and talk about how our youth is moving in a negative direction.
I recall it, Miko, and that's when Tree was on there, right? And
Correct.
how he was saying how the way he tried to do the best he can for those kids, and how he stay up late at night talking to them if they need him. And that's the thing that our youth need. They need to know that they need to know that they can get in touch with you or talk. You can hear them. I like to say, hear them and see them. They want to know that they can also trust you.
Mhm.
They want to, and I think that they can trust Tree. I believe that Tree build a relationship with those kids.
Right.
So yeah.
And as a result of those shows, remember we had a OAA, Savannah Offender Alumni Association. We had a
Mm-hmm.
rally when we called it the Voices of Our Youth, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to tell us what was going on. We even had some guests, multiple nonprofits to come out and just
Yes.
listen. We had counselors to come out and just
Yes.
listen to what our boys. Actually, two of the men that we had, one was from the 100 Black Men of
Mm-hmm.
Savannah, and the other was from, if I'm not mistaken, the 100 Black Men Collegiate from Savannah State. And so
Yes.
we are listening to the cry, if you will, of our young people. And we went on from there. We talked about guns and gang violence, who was
Yes.
out there and what they was doing right now to stop that. How could we stop that? As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, on March the 26th, there is going to be a rally, a Stop the Violence rally in Fraser Home, and you are definitely invited to come out. We are going to be listening, but also speaking to our young people. Stop the Violence rally, March the 26th. That's a Saturday. But tell us a little bit. Do you remember us talking about ways and stories of how we can combat violence, whether it's gang violence or gun violence? Talk to us, Julius.
Well, I want to go back to with the youth.
Mm-hmm.
Our youth are our most important asset because they come behind us. We won't be here long. They come behind us, and we got to forge a way for them. We got to forge that path for them to walk down. So our forefathers, ancestors made everything easier for us to travel down those roads. They took the abuse, they took the racism, they took everything that was thrown at them, and they survived so that we could have a life moving forward. Is everything perfect? No, but everything is being worked on. It's a process. But what we have to do, and our responsibilities and obligations, is to make sure that those kids behind us are all right. That's why we mentor these kids. That's why you were all day in the park today at Forsyth with those hard-headed kids. That's why. That's why we were. Why I carry mine to work with me. You know, 5 or 6 of them whenever I can, especially during the summer, because it's about having that adult look at to a man really, for them to look at and say, hey, I want to be doing what he's doing later on. Hey, I want to be able to say that I don't have to go through what Mr. Julius went through. I can bypass that because he's telling me the pitfalls now. We got to invest time in these youth, and because they're hard headed, like you said, and the thing is, and they are. I deal with them every day. They don't want to take the earplugs out. They don't want to. Told them, said, no, when you riding with me, you take the earplugs out because I want you to identify streets that you're on, where you at right now. I want you to be able to tell me what area this is. I want you to be able to, in case something happened, you can get on the phone and call and tell somebody where we at. It's about a learning um, uh, 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 um, system that we put in place while they are with me. You know, um, these youth these days from 13 on up, they curse like you ain't even sitting there if you ain't really listening and checking them. You got to teach them to be respectful of others because they will do that in front of anybody. And so we have to
So,
invest.
Mr. Hall, can I ask you a question? Excuse me for interfering while you're speaking. Can I ask you a question? Why do you think that they're like that? What you mentoring them, and Miko, you be around them more than I do. Why do you think that the youth have become this way? Tell me,
Two
speak
reasons.
on that.
Two
Okay.
reasons I see. One, the parent is not in the home to really give them that supervision that they need because the parent is
Mm-hmm.
out working 2 jobs.
Right.
So they have to go home and feed themselves, bathe themselves, do their own, be their own supervisors in the house. And the
Right.
second reason is babies having babies. You know,
Right.
um, we have a pandemic on our hand here in America that is not being recognized. We see it because of what
Mm-hmm.
we do here in the community. But some
Right.
people have cut themselves off from it. We have a pandemic in our community, in the Black community. They're dying
Mm-hmm.
30, 40 people a day in Chicago. We get 30 murders in a year and we mad. But they got 30 a day.
Wow.
So it is terrible that it is such a disconnect from the American public to see that we have a problem here in this country with us killing each other. They don't
Right.
care because it's a plan for us to exterminate each other. People think that we're
Exactly.
talking all these conspiracy theories, but just look at it. It's not a conspiracy. Hell, you're looking at it.
That's
It's in your
right.
face every day. They're letting us kill each other. You don't know that those officers know that they sell drugs on those corners?
Or they know.
Why aren't they bum rushing those corners every day? Why they let
Exactly.
those kids stay on those corners all day? You don't think that they know something going on
But
in that
guess what,
household?
Mr. Hall? Mr. Hall, guess what? It's on the corner that they sell it on. See, it's all right for them to be in the hood and sell it. But if those kids were on the land and sell it, the police will bum rush it. They
Say
will
it.
bum rush it.
Say
If
it.
they were on, it's the area they did, so it's all right. It's acceptable for them to be right there in East Savannah and stand on the corner all day and sell drugs. It's okay. When the district attorney, who was my professor, Gregory Jacobs, he was my professor. Guess what he said? He called out every area in East Savannah. He said, "Oh yeah, we know there was high polluting and crime. We knew that." You know what I was talking to my son about last night? I say, now, if they could find Bin Laden, right? They found Bin Laden, right? You mean to tell me they can't say who doing that shooting and they got the gun spot, the whatever, when you shoot the gun, they got those things posted around the city. You mean to tell me that they can't find it, but let the shooting go on downtown Savannah? I guarantee you they'll know.
But let me
You are
interrupt
not,
you right there. Let me interrupt you right there because the question was, why are
yes,
our young people doing what they're doing, not why other people are allowing them to do it. Now, I agree with everything you have said, but you asked a specific question. So I would like to respond to that. I think one reason why is
mhm,
because we are living in a culture right now where everybody wants to give children the freedom of adults.
There you go.
okay.
You must be
Everybody
listening
wants.
to Umar Johnson.
Nah, who is that?
He didn't listen to it.
Who
He
is
didn't
Umar?
listen to it.
Umar Johnson was in town the other day. You didn't see my Facebook page. He was at Wednesday night. He was at the Cultural Arts Center. Brad brother that tells the story the way it's supposed to be. He don't cut the mustard with nobody, and he
He
said
don't.
exactly what you just said just now. The kids are having babies, thinking that they are now equal to the adult.
And that's what's going on right there. And when you have, and I'm experienced, too much freedom will enslave you when it's not used correctly. And that's what's
Hmm.
going on right now. That's why they can cuss in front of an old lady like they do now when we'd have got punched in our mouth by our mothers back in the day.
Boom.
Yeah, that's why they
Exactly.
can act the way they act right now. But nevertheless, I want to continue in this vein with the youth because we had a show where we talked about this new bill that is sweeping its way through legislation, and it is called the Classroom Censorship Bill. This bill, for those who don't know, it is trying to restrict educators from speaking about the history, whether it's racial history or what have you. That's the primary aspect because they don't want to be divisive in the classroom. And so, do y'all remember the conversation we had with
Yes.
Jackie and also Mr. Wright, educator, and Mr. Grant, another educator?
Yes, sir. I do
Oh,
remember that. I really had liked that show. That's when I took and looked up all of those the words that, what was the name of the words that, because I took and I texted to you, Miko, and they were saying that you should not vote for those things.
it was
And even what's the
Tanya
name of,
Tanya Howard just texted in and she said it's the HB 888 bill, and she
that's
said
it.
that the children have no boundaries, but in reference to what we spoke of before that, but it's the HB 888, Marie.
Guess what? And guess what, Miss Howard Hall? I'm so glad you're on listening. Guess what? Even educators who I spoke to about that bill, they did not know about that bill. And then, they would take so many millions of dollars from the school system if you take and vote on that bill. So you should not vote yes for that. You should vote no,
Correct, and
because
that's what this
it takes
platform is about.
resources out of the school. Yeah. So yeah. I
And
have really
Marie,
liked that
a
show.
lot of
Yes,
people
sir.
still don't know what HBA 80 is. A lot of people still don't know about that classroom censorship. And that is why, again, this medium, this platform is so relevant because
Yes.
we need to educate our people. We go on. We talked about another title that we had on the show that we was talking about: reentry and recidivism. Reentry and recidivism. And we had a couple of men and women that were on who had been incarcerated, and they was telling us about the difficulty of reentering society, and that is one of the causes that's perpetuating recidivism. Recidivism, for those of you who don't know, is the potential for a reoffending, uh, I hate to use the word criminal, but offender to reoffend. It's when they
Right.
mess up and go back. That's recidivism. Now, they say that it is high. That may be the case. Why is it high? It's because coming out, there is not enough resources and people to help those that are coming out and to ensure that they have a smoother transition. And so I know that I was looking at some TED Talks. A TED Talk for our audience is an international motivational speaking platform of ideas. And there was a TED Talk about incarceration and how it's being run in other countries, like Germany, for example. Germany
Mm-hmm.
had low recidivism, and it's because of how they treat their incarcerated, first of all. And there are other places that I saw. America can learn from other countries because if we have a high incarceration rate, to have some low numbers in our world and community. So we talked about reentry and recidivism. Go ahead, Marie.
Miko, you remember what you remember what the gentleman said when we were talking about the system? He said that the system is designed to do what it's set out to do. It
Right.
is a trapment here in America for people to reoffend. Because Miko, to be honest, it is enough resources here to help those who come home. But if you take a person who has been incarcerated and you don't give them a second chance, and as Mr. Hall would say, a debt paid is no longer a debt, but you still holding that debt against me because you're telling me that I can't have that job.
Or I can't vote.
Exactly.
Exactly. Thomas Barber says, well, Rod has joined us. Rod Washington, good to have you. Thomas Barber says, life unfolds every day. Be open to life unfolding because you are the best person to tell your story. Your story inspires others to action. And again, that's why we have this platform to tell our story. What you got to say about that, Julius?
That's what it's all about. Your testimony might touch somebody who's going down the same roads that you are presently traveling,
Right.
that
Right.
they are presently traveling. And so by you telling your testimony here on this platform, it might stop somebody and say, that might say to themselves, I'm not going to do that. Here's an
That's right.
example of what could go wrong. Here's an example of somebody who did something that I shouldn't be doing because I'll have to eventually face the consequences. So that's what this
Right.
platform is all about. We need to inspire. We need to inspire people by our words. Our words. Words, the tongue is a lethal weapon. And we
Yes,
can
it
either
is.
use it for bad or for good. And if
Mhm.
we use it for good, then we can God can bless us because that's what we're here for. Everybody doesn't understand their destiny. Everybody doesn't understand their obligations that they're supposed to be melting out
Right.
to the public.
Right.
Everybody don't understand that. And it takes time for you to realize it after you get that knock in the head, that first day of being handcuffed or going to jail, or that first brush with almost getting killed, or that bad beat down or something that you shouldn't have gotten if you'd have been in the right place. Think about it right now. We are telling these young people how to survive. We
Correct.
know that we see what's happening. Even if they
Mm-hmm.
don't, we know one thing. Everybody that's out there dying is dying in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Dying in the streets. So if you ain't in the streets, it's a 90% chance that you're going to survive. It's a 90% chance that you're going to survive. Stay out of the streets. Get your kid off of that corner. Get your kid out of that game. A father, you have an obligation. You know what your child is doing.
That's right.
And you have to try to ring them in some kind of way. It is
And
our responsibility, even if it ain't my child.
Exactly.
now you got to be careful with that too now, because again, we in this culture have given liberty and license to youth that when you say something to them, you better be ready for the response that comes back. And that's what brought us to the other podcast that we talked about when we said education. Is it a remedy to incarceration? What's your answer,
Boy,
Julie?
I like that show.
Education is a remedy to incarceration because the more education you get, the more that you want to move on to doing something other than something criminal.
Right.
But we have one thing that is equal to education, and the world is not looking at it. Well, we aren't looking at it. The world knows, especially those educators. They know. But it's one thing that trumps education. Some people get by and get out when they get the education.
Mm-hmm.
They get out of that situation. They move on to something better. But peer pressure on these young kids trumps that. Because if you can't get them and pull them away from that peer pressure, they're going to sneak out at night. They're going to sneak while you're not paying attention. And they're going to go do those things that their friends are asking them to do. So we have to be able to put a male in those young men's lives so that they can say, hey, no, we're not going to do that tonight. And you're right, Julius, you got to be careful. If you don't know that child and you trying to help him, then he might not take it right. And we have 2 deaths already. 2 in West Savannah. 2
Yeah.
a misunderstanding or a stray bullet between people having a misunderstanding. So we got 2 deaths in the last month in West Savannah because of that. So we have to be careful in how we approach these young men and offer them the help. If you know them, give them that hard love. If you don't, then you need to try to give them love where you can still be safe because you saving somebody else is better than you being dead.
Let me turn the corner, Marie and Julius. What's going on right now? Prison reform. That's something that is out there because a lot of us don't know what's going on behind those bars. Now, because a lot of cell phone video or image is coming out of the institution, and then we have family members of those that are incarcerated. We're hearing their stories. They're giving us letters to talk about those stories. We must bring attention to what's going on behind bars. And so, with that being said, this is an opportunity for us to enlighten or educate or stir or motivate the community. If you have a loved one that's incarcerated, find out what's going on with them because you should not have to suffer punishment. And you all, no, hold on, let me say this correctly. If you have been indicted and given time, that was your punishment, not for you to go to a place and be treated inhumane. And so I believe that we must understand what's going on with our loved one, mother, father, uncle, brother, sister, grandparent. If there's a nephew, mother, father, brother that's incarcerated and you don't know what's going on, something is wrong with that. We need to find out what's going on behind bars because I have a friend that has been telling me that in the feds as well as in the states, there is a lot going on that people are not aware of. Inhumane is one area. Also, the way they're being treated, dehumanized. What about you, Julius? Have you been hearing, or Marie, have you been hearing stories? I know we had
Yeah.
Justin Justice Day Tuesday, and a group of ladies was telling us about the horrible plight of women that are incarcerated, not having the necessities of that women need in behind the bars. What can you share, Marie?
I was speaking to a young lady the other day, and I was going to talk to you about this, Miko. But since you asked this, she said that her boyfriend is in jail, right? And it's an inmate that's in the jail system that took something from another inmate, and they beat the inmate really bad. And the guards don't even come and check and say that she heard the boy moaning, like they beat him really bad. And so say the guards don't even come and check on the inmates because they don't have enough staff. So I felt really bad about that, Miko, because she said like he is bloody. And if the guards don't check, he probably can be dead right now, Miko. And that really bothers me. I'm just
Julius?
letting you know.
Well, they are understaffed. It's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff that's going on in these prisons these days, lately because of COVID. The officers don't want to go around the inmates. So they get away with doing a whole lot of things that they weren't privy to before. The conditions have worsened because there is no staff to enforce. Um,
right,
so it's something that needs to be addressed. In the federal prison system, is totally different. You're treated in a humane way. They have bylaws on the wall for the inmates to look at and for the officers to look at all over the prison, well, in certain places in the prison where you might go. And believe me, they really empower the inmate to make sure that that officer treats them like a human. So the federal system is way better than the state system. Um, it's a lot of stuff that you see on TV. It ain't happening in the feds. Believe me, it ain't happening in the feds the way that it's happening on TV. When people see those, that's usually the state prison. You don't see the feds unless you have one of those real bad federal penitentiaries where people most time are never coming home, and it's only about five of those in the whole country when they got 1,000 prisons. So so the conditions are worse in the state, and they don't
but why?
care. They
Why
want you
is
to
that?
not come back, huh?
Why is that, Mr. Hall? Why is it that way? Why do the federal system care more than the state system? It's all judicial. So what's the difference?
Well,
Before you answer that, Julius, before you answer that, we must qualify our statements too. Uh,
Okay.
by and large, the federal does not have mass stories or conditions like that. But there are some cases where the Fed is doing some real offensive handling of the men there.
and if that's the case, then it's probably in private fed joints. Believe me, you can go to any federal institution, and some inmates are more powerful than the officers. Let me tell you,
Wow.
I don't even think we got enough time for me to tell you the stories. I remember one warden, he would send an officer home from walking across his grass. Walking across the grass. He had the inmates in check and he had the officers in check. You didn't play with Warden Wiley. Warden Wiley didn't play the music, but you won't have that happen in a state prison. The feds are totally different, absolutely totally different. I'm talking about a level that is night and day. And the state prisons need to be ran that way. The feds, the federal judges are going to look at the lawsuits. The state judges aren't. They're
Wow.
not going to answer. The
Barbara
feds
often
have
asks a
more money
question.
than the state.
Barbara often says, "Are the inmates treated as bad in the county jails?" Julius.
I would say that they are because the county,
Yes.
the jails really don't care about you. Some jails, you're going to be treated. Everything is understaffed. Chatham County Sheriff's Department is 120 officers short. I mean, really, right
Wow.
now today, 120 officers short right now today. The Savannah Police Department is 85 officers short right now today. So it's a lot of stuff that's going on that, and I don't know whether it's on purpose that, I mean, you telling me that you can't find anybody? You know, what's the problem? You can't find nobody for real to work these jobs? People need jobs. And if you just go out and recruit properly, you can put those people in those jobs. But that's the problem. It's a money thing. And with the state prisons, the prison system is a money thing anyway. It's an economic driver for certain people that want to have generational wealth for their families.
Here's the question that we started out with. Well, not the question, but the motivation. And that is, Barbara says, wow, okay, thank you too, Julius. But that's why we started out with the platform. If you have a loved one or a friend of a loved one that's incarcerated, find out what's going on with them. Now, in some cases, everything is okay. But in other cases, there are stories that are horrifying to the treatment, be it fed or state. Or, matter of fact, just recently, there was a story with my co-pastor whose son went in the jail walking and now coming out in a wheelchair. It's just things that are taking place, and we have to educate ourselves and find out what's going on behind the bars. And so that's why it is important. Prison reform, even reentry, all of these things. But we are near the end. So before we get ready to close, Julius, we give you a chance. In closing, what would you say to our listeners as it relates to the whole of tonight?
I'm going to keep it short because we ain't got but 2 minutes. So I'm going to keep mine short. You can go anywhere from right here. Anywhere.
I like that.
Once paid, a debt is no longer a debt. You don't owe anybody nothing. Move forward and don't look behind you. All the haters going to hate anyway. Just keep doing what you're doing and don't worry about nobody. Yeah, I talk a lot of noise because I can. I carry a big bag with me. And I don't care what nobody say about me because you're not paying my car note and you're not paying my mortgage. So it don't matter what you say about me. So I'm going to keep doing what I do. I change lives. I'm a change agent. I'm not no kingmaker, nothing. I'm just a change agent. And that's what everybody needs to try to be.
Marie?
Well, goodness. Ain't no more need to be said. I like that. You just said it. You said all the haters. Then you say he got a bat like Joe Clark.
And I went to that high school.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Well, anyway, I love
Madison, New Jersey.
See that? We got a new Joe Clark right now on the show. So I just enjoy being on the show with you guys. And I just hope that the men and women that are listening to the show, that they just be encouraged. That they be encouraged and just push forward and know that one day you will be home. And when you get home, find the resources that you need. You can find, it'll be a Julius and a Marie and a Julius Hall to help you.
That's right.
Thank you. And so tonight we want to say thank you to all our listeners. Thank you, Facebook, YouTube, and those that are also behind the bars. We are thinking about you. We want to encourage you. We want to motivate you, those that are in the community. Why? Because this platform is about changing the narrative, but about also bringing resources to those that are in need. We might have started this thing out wrong, but look at us now. We are finishing strong. Until next Friday, we will see you again on Ink to Ink. Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Like this. 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 Like this.